emotions, from increased heart rate. Even when we fall in love, we have butterflies in our stomach. That's part of an emotion. Muscles tension when we are in a tight position. And, when we are afraid, we also show some form of anxiety or sweating or some kind of heightened awareness. All this is just to inform us that it's either you're afraid, or you're overwhelmed, or you're happy. Humans, we are very impulsive. Not that we're supposed to be impulsive, but we just find ourselves being impulsive. And because we cannot regulate our impulse, or we make decisions, because we don't understand our impulse, we make decisions based on our impulse. We don't weigh the pros and cons. And before we know it, there are consequences that we have to face. So the idea of this meeting is to build skills. Like I said, it's going to be a lot of application. Build skills on how we can understand our emotion and then regulate it. Now, children also develop emotional, they have some form of emotional development, and it happens when they are babies, even when they're in the womb. Their attachment with their caregiver, either their mom or the person that is taking care of them. So we need to be sensitive enough to understand that if we are handing our children over to people to take care of them, how emotional intelligent are they? I know it sounds like English, but it's about what you're doing. Do you ignore the child when the child is crying for attention? And some people feel, I want to teach the child resilience. You can't be teaching a child resilience as a baby. The child needs care, and you need to give that care. If you don't give the care, the child feels abandoned, feels neglected, and emotional development has been formed without us knowing. As we grow older, our experiences and social interaction continue to shape our emotional development, our responses, and our ability to regulate them. Now, I have identified different challenges, and I'm hoping that at the end of this meeting, these challenges would be addressed. The first challenge is our inability to manage emotions because we don't understand the emotion, and that results to poor communication and difficulty in building and maintaining relationship. If you don't understand how you're feeling and you act in an erratic way, and the other person does not understand what is going on with you because you did not communicate effectively, it would destroy relationship. And what would that do? Because we are relationship now being, we are made to have relation. Our stress increases, our anxiety increases, and it limits our personal growth. Now, what can we do? I'm hoping that at the end of the day, we will be able to get the following things, just 3 things. Please, next slide. Next slide, okay. No, please go back. We'll become more aware of our emotion so that we can start living our lives intentionally. We will also start communicating efficiently and developing personal growth, not just for us, but also support other people. And lastly, we will foster renewed relationship with ourselves first before others. Because if we don't understand the relationship we have with ourselves, we can't have a better relationship with other people. Now, the mind is a crucial part of our emotions, of how our emotions, how we respond to our emotions. But for this training, we're going to be looking at, or for this seminar or lead, we're going to be looking at the conscious mind, which is the objective mind and stores up short-term memory. Also receive information from the subconscious mind and act on them. That means that our conscious mind cannot work on its own. It is what the subconscious mind delivers or provides the conscious mind. That is what it would act on. Then the second one is the subconscious mind. I always call the subconscious mind the womb of a human being, because our experiences, our nurture, imprints on our subconscious mind, and that forms our beliefs. It forms our perception. It forms our thoughts. From there, our values are being defined. Now, the subconscious mind is developed at early age when the baby is still in the womb until the child is 7 years, and then the conscious mind kicks in. Now, it stores long-term memories and is responsible for processing and storing information that is not immediately available to our conscious awareness. It also shapes our beliefs, our attitude, our behaviors, and influences our emotional experiences. Next slide, please. Now, we're going to talk about core belief. We've already said that our core belief is ingrained in our subconscious mind, and our core belief is very powerful because it shapes the view we have of ourselves, the view we have of other people, and the view we have of the world. And from that, we can now see the impact of our thoughts. It is from this. Let me just go back. Our core belief is like a foundation of a house. When you're building a house, the foundation determines how many floors you're going to have. Now, your core belief is like that foundation. When your core belief is positive and powerful, your thoughts will be positive. Your feelings will be positive. Your perception of the world and the people around you will be positive. Your assumptions would not be a witch hunt for you, but it will be a reason for you to ask questions and get clarity. And that just continues the cycle. So your belief determines your thoughts determines your emotion determines how you act, and then it reinforces the belief, and then that cycle keeps going on and on and on and on. But the good thing is that we can make changes. Now, when you're thinking, it's normal for us today, we think over 80,000 thoughts in a day, and that 80,000 thoughts are repeated. 80% of them are repeated thoughts from the previous day. And most of those thoughts, we don't even complete our thoughts. We just think of one thing, and then something else comes, we move to the next thought, and we don't actually sit down and settle with those thoughts. So we keep carrying out thoughts that we thought 10 years ago. We are still thinking about it. We have not acted. We've not done anything about it. So it's important for us to be able to catch our thought. You have a thought. You ask yourself, why am I thinking this way? Now, this also informs you that there's something wrong with your core belief. So you go back to the foundation, that's the core belief, and try to identify the core belief you're holding first, and then be able to reframe it. We are going to do some practical so we can see how this can be done. Now, another thing I would like to talk about is assumption. In the last, I think this year, mostly this year, I've had several clients that I noticed that one of the major issues that they had were assumption. Assuming that this partner did not do a certain thing the way it was supposed to be done. Now, human beings, we have the tendency to assume, and it's okay. I assume every time, but I use my assumption, or we are supposed to use our assumption as a form of clarity-seeking process. So why am I thinking this way? We need to be courageous enough to ask questions to get clarity. Now, the human mind is very interesting. We want to justify what is going on, why this is going on. We want to justify everything. That is how we are, because we want to feel safe with wherever we find ourselves. So the most important thing is that we don't take our assumptions as truth, but we take it as a tool, or we take it as a process for us to find out the truth behind the thing that we are assuming could be truth. Now, when we assume, we release emotional poison with our words. And when we release emotional poison, it limits our thoughts, the way we think, it limits the way we think, it closes up our mind. And then it also causes us a lot of suffering and difficulties and emotional upheaval. Next slide, please. So how can we stop assuming? Not stop, we can't stop assuming because it's a human nature. How can we manage our assumption? Ask questions. Have the courage to ask questions and get clarity. As the potential impact of assumptions are misunderstanding, stereotyping, you're inflexible. And when there are a lot of options. When you're inflexible, it seems like, oh, that person is, I hear people say, oh, that person, they move. It's just there one place. But we are not supposed to be like that. We need to continue. We need to flow like water. We need to be able to be flexible and move with the current. Now, it limits our perspective of the world, of people, of situation, and that closes up opportunities. And then we also experience emotional impact. Next slide, please. Now, before I continue and talk about thought patterns, I want us to look at this case study. It's about a lady that has a distorted thought pattern. So I'm just going to read, and yeah, it's up there. So Jane is a 28-year-old woman who has been struggling with emotional dysregulation for years due to childhood trauma and the loss of her parents at a young age. Despite a difficult upbringing, she was able to complete her education and land a job at Google. However, Jane experiences intense mood swings that range from extreme happiness to deep sadness and hopelessness. She finds it difficult to manage her emotion and often feels overwhelmed and helpless. Jane struggles with feeling of inadequacies and believes that she's inherently flawed. No matter what she does, she feels that she will never measure up to other people's expectation. As a result, she often feels like a failure and believes that others are judging her for not being good enough. At work, Jane's direct boss appreciates her efforts and is satisfied with her result. However, even a simple comment suggesting room for improvement can trigger intense feelings of shame and self-criticism. Her emotions quickly spiral out of control, and she may resort to impulsive behavior like binge eating or drinking or withdrawing from those around her to cope with her feelings. Now, before I continue, can we identify her core belief? Now, remember I said the core belief is the view of your perception of yourself, your perception of others, and the perception of the world. What is her perception? Because we can see she's successful. She's working in a good company. Her bosses loves her and compliments her. He's satisfied with her result. So what is her problem? First, can somebody help me? Can you identify any of her core beliefs? Exactly. She sees herself as a failure, that she's not good enough. That's one of her core beliefs. I need 3 core beliefs. What does she see? What does she think about what people say about her? How does she feel? Exactly. They're always judging her. Now, this is an assumption. She does not know, but she feels, they say, her feeling of inadequate, no matter what she does, she feels, so it's not like she knows, she feels that she will never measure up to other people's expectation because she feels they are judging her. So she feels that people are judging her because she's not good enough. So what do you think she thinks that the world sees her, the way the world sees her? Anybody? Now, let me go there. First, she experienced childhood trauma. She lost her parents. And from the story, it seemed like she had parents that cared for her enough to send her to school. But did they really care for her? Did they give her that need of being seen? Because I think that because of that childhood trauma and loss, she would have probably felt neglected and abandoned, because it's always different when you have parents that gave birth to you. Because even parents that gave birth to you, sometimes if they are not knowledgeable enough, they can actually abandon and neglect you while they are still with you. So she would have experienced that, and then she would just probably think that the world, nobody wants her. Why would her parents die when she was a child? If she was a Christian, she'll probably be like, what did I do to God? So her perception of God will probably be, God does not like me. He doesn't care about me. So what do you think how do you think she will think? How do you think her thoughts are going to be? With the feeling of failure, of not being good enough, of people not caring for her, and the world nobody cares, nobody sends her, God has left her. How do you think she's going to be thinking? Sorry. Pessimistic. Can you break that down a bit so that just you can give us an example. It can be anything. Exactly. She'll always feel disadvantaged. So no matter how good she is with her job, she does not see it. Even when her boss says, you're good enough, but just because somebody else has said there's room for improvement, which is not a bad comment, there's room for improvement, that keep up the good work. But her perception is that, oh, I need to do better. And then she withdraws herself from every other person to deal with her feelings. Next slide, please. Now, Jane had to see a therapist, we can call it a counselor or a coach, that worked with her to challenge her core belief and help her develop a more balanced and realistic view of herself. So let me talk about that. Now, we have identified those 3 core beliefs. I am not good enough. So what's the best way we can change that core belief is to look for something exactly opposite to that. What would it be? Let's make it interactive. I am not good enough. The positive part of that would be, I am good enough. I am good enough. And you even have evidence to show that you are good enough and that you deserve to be here in the place of work. You deserve to be where you are. The second one is she thinks people judge her. What should be the opposite of that? Nobody judges me. My boss appreciates me. And my colleagues are encouraging me to keep up the good work. She has evidence. But did she sit down to think of this evidence? No, because she's clouded by trauma. Trauma is like a shock in your bone. And the response from trauma is either you're fighting, you're running, or you're trying to please other people. And you cannot see beyond where you are at. That's your cocoon of self-pity. You rather stay there. That's a safe place. Human beings, we want to be in a safe place. We don't want discomfort. We don't want to move from where we are and step out. We just love self-comfort, Now the third one is that the world, she's rejected. The world does not care about her and nobody wants her. God has left her. What do you think should be the opposite of that? God loves her because she went to school and she came out and got a job in an international company. So God loves her and she was privileged because there are a lot of people that would not even have those opportunities or they would struggle and not even get the job. So God loves her. So she had evidence, but she would rather stay in a place that, and it's not her fault. It's not like she intentionally says, I want to be in this bad place. But like I said, trauma and grief, if not processed well, can become a problem to us. So they explored her past experiences and identify where the belief were originated from. So those are deep work that you do with your counselor or your therapist, and they open it up because you have to go back and see where did it come from? Where did this? Because if you don't get to the root of the problem will resurface. But when you get to the root of the problem, going forward, you're able to manage it better. Okay, they also work on developing healthy coping strategies to manage her emotion and break the cycle of impulsive behavior. So now that we've identified those new core beliefs, now we are going to turn those core beliefs into affirmations. Now I see a lot of people do all sorts of affirmations, fantastic, but the real affirmation is not just about, and it's not just affirmation, it's even prayers too. It's like affirmation / prayers. The emotion that you put into that affirmation is very important. If you're saying, I am good enough because Christ has said, you have a Bible passage to back it up. And then you say, Christ has said this, so I am good enough. No matter what, you keep saying that to yourself over a period of time, you will believe it. It's not, you don't have unless you don't apply the emotion and you don't desperately want it. If you desperately want a change and you're intentional about it and you apply, you get the core belief you want, you get a Bible passage, a quote. I like Bible passages because it's real, it's more authentic. I hold on to a Bible passage and I'm speaking that Bible passage every minute of my life until it becomes an auto run. Now, I know it's not easy, but you need to be ready for it because the change cannot happen if you don't do the work. She said 28 years she's gone through trauma, unprocessed. It's not going to happen overnight. Scientifically, 21 days, For us to change a habit, it takes 21 days for the brain to recognize that something has changed. The way Eka used to behave is not the way she is behaving right now. Something has changed. It takes 60 days for the brain to ingrain that your new imprint and for your subconscious mind to say, oh, okay, this is the new Eka. So I always say, give yourself 1 year. I don't believe in forcing things and setting unrealistic goal. I believe in taking one step, understand yourself, take one step at a time and do what works for you. And then over time, Jane begins to shift her perspective and develop a more positive self-image. She realizes that her worth is not tied to her accomplishment or others' opinion of her. That's very important because we tie our I am Eka because I have 2 children. That shouldn't be. I should be Eka because I am what God has said about me, and you have all those things. Because I am beautiful, I am intelligent, I am helping people, I am satisfied with my life. It should be about me. All the other components, external things that we have just complement who we are, not what we are. Complements who we are, not what we are, yeah. So we continued therapy and support. She learns to manage her emotion more effectively and lived a more fulfilling life. Can we identify? I can identify myself with Jane in so many ways. Is there anyone that is with me on that? I feel like Jane's story is my story at some point of my life. So is there any other person that can identify with Jane? No, you can't identify with her. Okay, why? It's okay. This is a safe space, I believe. Okay. No, it's not good. But that's one thing, yeah.
Okay,
I understand
thing. She suffered trauma.
Yes.
And we can understand how the trauma affects every other thing. But the reason I cannot relate with Jane is I take little success important. I take little things I do. Franklin, okay, you defended yourself, and even though you were wrong, you'll be a good lawyer. You understand? Or I can find little victories in things that are seemingly not victorious. For instance, I'm alive. I went through so and so. I'm good. I am solid. So I think that's the major reason I cannot relate with her, because you're working in Google, for crying out loud. What else do you want?
I understand. Okay, what's your name, please? Chukwuemeka. Have you always been like this? Let's assume that you're let me assume, I'm just assuming, and is it okay to assume I'm just going to assume your age. Let's say you're in your 30s. Okay. Let me just assume that you're in your 30s. Have you always been like this from, let's say, 11 years?
Yeah.
You've always been like this?
Yeah.
So you haven't actually grown from 11 years?
Okay.
No, it's okay. What I was trying to say to you, I understand how you're feeling. And when I was doing like a dry run of this presentation with my son yesterday, and he said to me, "Mommy, please, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Go ahead." He said, "Don't you think this lady is weak?" And I understood where he was coming from, because first of all, in Nigeria, as a Nigerian parent, you have to be strong. Do you understand? So I knew where my son was coming from. But I said, you see, you are strong today, or you are resilient, or whatever you think you are, but you are not like that. You've grown to be where you are. And that's why we need to always understand. It might not be trauma. I might not be able to relate with trauma, but I can empathize with Jane. I can empathize with her experience. Do you understand? You haven't gone through trauma, so you don't understand trauma. Have you gone through trauma? If you've gone through trauma, it's not possible for you to have been like during trauma and now.
Okay, I'm not saying that.
And I think this is a learning experience. Sorry, don't be angry. This is a learning experience for us to understand, because we always see It's not possible. And especially in Nigeria. And on Friday, I had opportunity to speak with some people on mental health. And people couldn't resonate with trauma, especially childhood trauma. And it made me realize, I used to think that this information is everywhere now. But people cannot resonate with it. So I totally understand where you're coming from. Please go ahead.
Okay, it's not like I don't empathize with Jane.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so you empathize with Jane.
No, but what I'm saying is these things should I've not lost a parent, so I really don't know how she feels.
Okay.
That's fact. But traumas are in different categories.
Definitely.
You understand? And
even being in Nigeria,
you might have
be traumatized.
you might have a parent, and according to degree of traumatization, go through worse than this.
Yes, definitely.
You understand?
Definitely.
So what I'm saying is, I have been through my own shares of trauma. But it doesn't stop me from looking at him and saying he's against me, or he's trying to kill me, or he's judging me. My point is, at some point you have to let those. I don't know, I'm not speaking as, you must drop it now. You can't carry it always now. That's what I'm saying.
That's why she dropped it when she found a therapist. Because it's not, let me tell you, trauma is not something that you can say, okay, you move, or you don't go. No, it hijacks your mind. It hijacks. Let me tell you a story about my life. I had a traumatic experience, and I left the country, and I came back with my 2 children. They were very young at the time. And when I came back, I had to go back to my former work. Now, I had gone through separation, and I was going back to my former work, and I was working in a bank. And you know how crazy banking can be. Then I had this boss, a man. The guy, now I can say he did not traumatize me. He was just doing his job, but I was traumatized. I was frozen. Like, I just go to work in the morning and I come back. My son can say to me now, he said, Mommy, you have changed. I was like a zombie. I could not engage. I couldn't think. My parents were worried about me. And at the time, I didn't even believe in counselors and therapists. I had a pastor. I would talk to the pastor. We will pray. But I'll still go back to the same. My thoughts were so out of this world. Like, I would think some things, and I will not even believe that I can think that kind of. I will have the capability. I can't even say it out to think those things. That's what trauma can do to you. And like you said, there are different degrees of trauma. There are people that have it worse. I feel I was blessed and lucky that I found a counselor that worked with me and brought me to my own purpose. And now I'm helping other people. Do you understand what it means? Trauma is, when it comes to trauma, when I see people that are traumatized, I empathize with them, because even though I've experienced trauma, I cannot relate with your trauma. It is different because we are different people. Okay.
Is there a place for personality type playing a role in how much a person really is susceptible to
We're talking about that next week.
Oh, okay.
So we will deal on that. So, okay, let me finish. I just have 2 more or 3 slides, and then we will come back to you. Okay, so let's look at distorted thought pattern. I just thought that it was important for us, since I'm talking about thoughts a lot and how they affect our emotions, I thought it was important for us to talk about how we think. We filter. You know, sieve. You put something and you sieve. That's how we have sometimes. We filter information that does not sit well with us. And when you do that, you distort the way you're thinking. Polarizing is that it's either black or white. There's no in between. They cannot have a gray area. It's either at the extreme. And of course, that also distorts. Generalization, all men, there are no good men to marry. I use that because that's a general statement people say, but that's not true. There are amazing human beings that are ready to make commitments. Jumping to conclusion, deleting. Somebody says, I always say, some people have selective amnesia. They just take out the one that is important to them and leave the other one. How will you leave the other one and expect that you've been informed to take a right decision? And at the end of the day, there's an issue, and then everybody is just, emotional because we have distorted our thoughts. And then mind reading, which is like assumption. Oh, I think he said, did he say it? You're thinking that you've not even finished thinking your own thoughts. You're not thinking another person's thought. That's a lot of work, and I don't think we need to do that. Next slide, please. So we can think in different ways. I just highlighted this for perceptual. We are looking at how we perceive things. Of course, if you have a good core belief and your thoughts are right, your perception will also be right, and you give room for option. That's the good thing about perception. I can think from your perspective and give you grace and room to move. I can also think from other people's perspective, and that's very good for parents. I do that a lot with my children, especially when I'm trying to get them to face their studies. I'm like, okay, so imagine that you were a parent. How would you feel? Tell me. I'm your child and you are the parent. And I think it changes the way they think. I've done that over the years, and I've seen it actually work with both my kids. So that's a good tool that we can use for our children. Reflective thinking, when we are really sitting down quiet on our own and really go through our mind, thinking about something that, we need to sort out. Then critical thinking, asking the when, the how, the what, the why question, open-ended questions that will, open up our minds to think more. Then strategic thinking. Strategy, I'm sure everybody has a business or something that they're doing, and they require certain level of strategies to execute their contracts or whatever they need to do. Please, next slide. So in summary, I think we need to break the vicious cycle by challenging our beliefs and our thoughts, which will influence our action. And that requires intentionality. We need to live life intentionally. We cannot continue to live life the way we used to live life. It's not happening again. Things are changing. There's a shift physically, there's a shift spiritually, there's a shift everywhere. And for you to flow with the shift. And for you to flow with the shift, we need to be more intentional. We need to be flexible. Let's not stereotype ourselves. Let's not deprive ourselves of the opportunities that are out there. Remember, there are several options available if only you can open your mind to them. They said plenty road, they lead to market, Abi. There are a lot of roads to lead to where we want to go to. Ask questions to clear up doubt and any form of assumption. Ask questions. Be courageous to ask questions. If you can't ask it then, go back, ask that question. As soon as you ask the first time, it will be easier to ask subsequent questions. Manage your expectation, the expectations you have of yourself. If you know who you are, then your expectations will be more realistic. But if you don't know who you are, you're going to be setting goals based on other people's expectations. So define who you know who you are, define what you want based on who you are, and take one step at a time. Consistency is very important. It's not running fast, it's being consistent, one step at a time. That's my motto, one step at a time. And even for us as human beings, that is the best way we can live our life. Our emotion is a good intel. Learn to use them well. We all have the power to live a fulfilled life. Next slide. There's no such thing as unsolvable obstacle. Everything is an opportunity when you know how to process your perception. Your mind is your greatest asset. Your emotion is your greatest intel. Develop it and use it. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, so I've said a lot of things, but I thought I should say this. It's not easy to do, especially if you've dealt with trauma or grief, or maybe it might not be trauma or grief, it might be something else that you've dealt with, and you're having difficulties with your core beliefs and your thoughts, your emotions, and all that. It's important to seek help. You can help yourself. I've done a primary way of identifying your core beliefs and reframing them, and how you can use affirmation and prayer to continue to repeat it to yourself over and over, and then it will be ingrained in your subconscious mind and it becomes automatic. Remember, it takes a while. So even if you do that and you're still having issue, you need to seek professional help. I give professional help, and this is my contact if you want to reach out. Thank you. So we have 7 minutes, and we'll be taking questions. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Church.
Good morning.
I have two issues. Number one, the word assumption.
Okay.
The way you sounded is like making assumption is always on a negative side, if I understood it well. Because it was actually a statement you said assumption releases poison. You know? I think assumption could also be positive. I mean, let's even look at the case of maybe one wants to get engaged to somebody. Just have to make assumption that look, this is the best candidate I have. I don't know whether I'm right. And then the other thing is the Nigerian content of this presentation. I mean, you cited the case of Jen, who apparently from the storyline is somewhere in the Western world, graduated and worked in
That's
Google.
an assumption.
That's an assumption. Works in Google and everything is just, even though we would expect her by Nigerian standard to be very happy, buy a car, she's still not doing well. Now, at what point can somebody say, look, something is wrong with me? How does that person realize that problem? Because, like you said, somebody may say you are not doing well. You say, I like myself like that. Don't just worry about me. I'm okay. I'm fine. So how do we know that the person has a problem?
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. So the first one, assumption. Remember, assumption is not a statement of fact. And I think the worst thing we can do is assume that a candidate is right for us to marry. That's wrong. I think we should ask questions. So if you feel that, like I said, assumption is for clarification. So I assume that somebody is my candidate for marriage. Then the next thing is, what does he do? Who is he? Is he a Christian? How is his family? So you see the question? So assumption is not an end goal. It's a facilitation of advanced communication. That's what I want us to be able to take assumption to be. That it helps us to facilitate more questions. We should not take it as truth. It's when we take it as truth without evidence, that's when it becomes a problem. Because you're not in the person's shoe. You don't know what the person is going through. So I won't say it's a wrong or a right thing. You also know that when there are certain things that you might think they are good, or you might even have some strength that if you don't know how to manage them, they become weaknesses. You know that as our personality. Some people have strength, they are very aggressive, they are outspoken, but sometimes they can get on the nerve of an introvert because they're like, you're too loud because I can't deal with it. So assumption is just, I want us to take it as a guide. If I'm assuming something, that means there's a question I need to ask. There's a clarity I need to get. That's what I think assumption should be. I don't know if that was helpful, sir. So it's the impact. What's the impact on you? That's the next thing we'll be asking. How does it impact? Thank you very much. Then the second one, the Nigerian, why I chose that case study was because it had the Nigerian factor in it. I've had the privilege to, coach or counsel a lot of people and had similar, in short, I coined that case study from experiences of so many people. My experience is there and a lot of other people. That's why I coined it. Yes. I don't know if that was okay. We have just one minute. Welcome, sir. Okay. You have a question. We have just 1 minute, so it has to be 1 minute. Okay, the question has to be 30 seconds, then I can answer in 30 seconds.
Okay, I used to be a very unserious person. Mrs. Mo will be a witness. You understand? I could come up stage and laugh. And this is while talking or ministering. What's making me laugh? I just saw something in the audience and it tickles my fancy. And I just express myself, I laugh. But now, she told me, Franklin, you need to work on this. I'm an open-minded person. I worked on it. And now Franklin, you're too stiff, you're too rigid. Why can't you just do this thing? Why can't you loosen up a bit? Just be cheerful, have fun. And I'm like, I was that.
But you weren't okay with it. But which one works for you? Which one do you like?
I think I like this.
You like this? That's okay.
That's one. Secondly, we are Nigerians.
Okay.
And most of us think counseling is a waste of time.
Yeah.
Because we have a way of, we're like the honey badgers. When they shoot us, we grow thicker. You understand?
We are strong people.
We cannot relate with most of these pity cases. We're like, we're Nigerians. Everywhere you should understand, we are in a pitiful mess already. So how do we now have that empathetic feeling towards others, since it's something that's not even within our sphere?
So I think we need to start now. Now we know. Even counseling is no longer what we used to call it. I'm looking for help. I need help with something. I think if you look at it from that perspective, it makes it easier. You're not going there because you're crazy or you're mad. You're going there because there's something. It's like you're driving a car. You can't be looking at driving and looking back. But there's someone that is professional enough to look back and tell you there's something going on back, and then you retrace it. So that's what counseling is now. We need to change the way we think about counseling. That's one. Then the second one, how do we know? When you start, like somebody said something to you, and the person said it from the context that in our culture, people would think that there's something wrong with you, and you worked on it. If you didn't work on it, you probably would have felt that there's something wrong with me. But now you're comfortable with where you are, even though people are saying, oh, there's something wrong, but I'm sure you're satisfied with the way you're. So you'll just be able to communicate, find a balance. Sometimes you try to be, those things that they say you're rigid about, maybe the way you take decisions, I really don't know. But you find a balance. Sometimes we need to find a balance. And this thing, there's no cutthroat answer. So we need to keep learning and finding out the one that works for us and find the balance and just keep going. Intentionality is the key word. I hope we're all blessed today, please.